Okay, I'm back to review The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is a biopic about Tammy Faye Baker, who was a TV evangelist who spoke up for gay rights and especially during the AIDS pandemic. And this movie painted her as like the ultimate good guy, kind of, or at least as good as you could be when you're also a TV evangelist, I guess. Because she was a person who really believed it, you know? Or at least that's how the movie painted her. A person who really believed in spreading the word of Jesus and really thought that Jesus should love everyone. And that included people that what other Christians might have looked down on it at the time. Or still do, I guess. Never mind. I mean, this problem hasn't stopped. But she was a person who was at least willing to shine a light on it and speak up for the little guy, I guess. Cat seems to really like being on camera, I guess. Right, Harley. It's one of those biopics that basically goes through her whole life, which I usually don't like because people just do it wrong most of the time. Like I was talking about with, what was the name of that movie? Or The Hand of God. I feel that most biopics just do it wrong because they just start jumping around really randomly and don't actually tell a complete story. It's just like, well, this happened to him in his life, and this also happened to his life, so what's the problem? It's like those two things don't go together. But this one does it correctly for the most part. Every scene always stayed with the theme of the movie, and it consistently pushed the plot forward, which are what scenes are supposed to do, essentially. And there was my itch nosing. Hey, when my itch noses. And it showed a lot of aspects of her life. A character study, much like Hand of God was, except it, again, does it correctly. And even though I'm like the person who'd probably be least interested in this subject matter, I couldn't care less about any TV evangelist, no matter how good they might have been, this movie still captivated me. It was still told a good story about this person that I, again, didn't care about at all. But it made her story fascinating to me, and I actually enjoy what I learned about her in the course of viewing this movie. It didn't make me like TV evangelist, but... In many ways, this movie was almost like a movie just about failed relationships or toxic relationships in a lot of ways because Tammy just kept latching on to these people. I mean, it didn't help that her mom was obviously very toxic herself and like she was especially like self-centered and very Bible thumping, and that's probably why Tammy ended up going into the profession she did. But her mother was always hypercritical of her, and even no matter how famous she got or how rich she was or whatever, it's like nothing she did was ever good enough for her mother. But she was still always trying to impress her and always trying to get on her good side and somehow like change her mother, even though she was obviously incredibly resistant to change. And it covered a lot of her relationship with to Jim Baker, who comes off really strong at first as being like this ultimate good guy and everything, but like then it's like 2 years later and it cuts to like basically like just how toxic he is and how horrible he is and how much he's just using her. And it just feels like she never gave up hope on these people. It's almost why she failed, you know? Not that this movie really shows her as being like much of a failure. It's kind of like the rise and fall and then rise again of Tammy Faye Baker, because it shows just how all the twists and turns that her career went over as it lasted. But I think it did a really good job of demonstrating like just how hard it was being Tammy Faye, I guess. How she would basically lift herself up over and over again only to be broken down by the people around her. But she never gave up on them. I don't know. That's the tragedy in itself. It's almost like a story about how toxic people can just keep pulling you down. Just because, like, sometimes there might be that shining light. It doesn't mean they're gonna stop cheating on you and stop treating you like garbage. Just because of hope doesn't mean you should keep beating a dead horse, I guess. I guess it's funny, I guess, that I also watched Sunrise tonight, just in that's also about the perpetuation of toxic relationships. Except that one has a happy ending, where the man gets to keep abusing his wife, I guess. This one actually didn't have like a terrible ending. It wasn't like Nightmare Alley. It was uplifting. I would say this was so far the most uplifting movie I've seen in these Oscars. Which, not that that's hard. But there also seems to be this theme I've noticed that, at least so far, that they like to take the nice guy actors and put them as really bad people in these Oscars, it seems. Like, because Andrew Garfield, who isn't always, like, the greatest guy, but he's usually, like, kind of a heroic type or, you know, like the main character type of person. And this time because he's Jim Baker, he's, like, biggest narcissist, pretty much. Just like totally full of himself and totally manipulating Tammy, and I just hate him. I hate him from the get-go. But even he has like kind of a redeeming moment. But I think that's almost just showing like how Tammy sees them, like that, because there's that hope. But she doesn't know that people are just manipulating her with that hope. And that's like the tragedy of Tammy Faye, almost. So I would say this was a really good biopic. Especially the first half. The first half is like a really tight story and told very well. But then like the second half, it gets a little like meandering and kind of like being like, and this also happened. And there's like 3 montages. And that's all in the second half of the film. I mean, I don't mind montages, but like you could have too many, you know? So I kind of feel like you could have cut down at least like 15 minutes in that second half, and it would have been a tighter movie, and that would have helped the flow of the movie a lot better. I'd say that it's a very good story, well told. But this shined a light on a character or a person that I really didn't know too much about before watching this movie, and I thought that they did a good job of like showcasing her life and like showing why she wasn't your typical TV evangelist, I guess. And I guess it's good to have hope, you know? And like maybe that's part of the movie, part of the message, that even despite all these horrible things happening to her because of all these toxic people around her just manipulating the hell out of her, she never gave up that hope. Maybe it's better to be blissfully ignorant in a way. But I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. But it's like because she was like that her entire life, she never gave up on people entirely. All right, I should probably actually like critique the movie and stop like trying to determine the themes and why the movie works or not on like a philosophical level. Okay, the acting was amazing. I really liked Jessica Chastain, or however you pronounce her name, was incredibly captivating as Tammy Faye. She definitely became the role. And it's always interesting to see. I mean like many actors or character actors or method actors, I forget which one's which right now. I think it's method actors because they follow the method to become the characters that they're acting as, you know, and then character actors just play themselves in every movie, pretty much. But Jessica Chastain did such a good job in this role. It's hard to look away anytime she was on screen. I mean, she was on screen for most of the movie, so it was just hard to look away. But she does such a good job playing this person, playing Tammy Faye. Like, she becomes such a sympathetic character because of how well she plays the part. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. Just know that Amanda Chastain is great. Gonna be a household name someday. If she isn't already, I've never heard of her before this movie. But that's on me. Andrew Garfield was also really good. Like I said, I've never seen him play like a really bad person in this way. Not in this way, anyway. Vincent D'Onofrio was also in it, and I kept making jokes because he's Kingpin and Andrew Garfield was Spider-Man in 2 of the Spider-Man movies. And I just kept making jokes that like Kingpin and Spider-Man together again, pretty much, even though he was never Kingpin with Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. But though I really like Vincent D'Onofrio, or however you pronounce his last name, he was hardly in it. I just wish he was in it a little more. I mean, like I guess he didn't have to be in it more, but I just really like him. It's not a complaint, really. I mean, it is a complaint. It just doesn't detract from the movie. For biopic, I think this hit all the right notes, you know, and it didn't fall apart, really. It did get kind of like a little wonky in the second half, but I wouldn't say it like completely fell apart or anything. The story was still fairly consistent. Oh, this is up for an Oscar for, well, Best Actress for Amanda Chastain, but also for Best Makeup and Hairstyle, so I feel like maybe I should mention something like that, but I think that's mostly for how well they did making Amanda Chastain look like Tammy Faye Baker, which, as her life continued, probably got harder and harder to do. But they did a really good job. If they won the Oscar for that, I would definitely say they deserved it, even though I don't think I've seen anything else in that department yet. I would say I really like this movie, even if I didn't like the subject matter all that much. I'd say this is a well-made movie. The wonky second half kind of detracted more than a bit. It made it kind of just a bit boring in the second half. Just because of that, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. Maybe even a 7 out of 10. Just some of the stuff in the second half just maybe kept going like, You know, this because it started out so strong, but then kind of got weaker the longer it went on. Just how the story went, I think. And I know that's just how her life went and everything, but it felt like with the quick pace and everything, like how it slowed down in the second half and how it really kind of meandered on different things. I felt it kind of lost the theme of the movie a little bit, and that made the pacing slow down quite a bit, and that detracted from it more than it should have. You know, it like detracted from it too much until like the movie suddenly is just about something else. And I know that sometimes people's lives go like that, but that's why you don't show that part. You know, you make your movie about one thing. That's the plot. Detracting from that. And some movies can like survive kind of like a midway point suddenly becoming about something else, but like it's kind of it's a really wonky thing to do. From Dusk Till Dawn, it's kind of the movie coming to my mind where I really like the movie, but it's like two separate movies put together pretty much. Where one is about them trying to escape to Mexico, and then as soon as they get to Mexico, then they're fighting vampires. Which it's like it doesn't just change to a different movie, it changes genres completely. And I feel that movie works, and it's a lot of fun, but it's like really hard to do that. The reason that movie works is because both movies that are mashed together work as by themselves, you know. So you can like enjoy the first one for what it does, and you can enjoy the second one for what it is, you know. This one doesn't do that exactly, you know, because the second half is built on the foundation of the first. It doesn't just switch to a different movie, pretty much. And also, if you did that, it would be very strange for something like this to like just suddenly switch to a different movie, like, and then Tammy Faye has to fight goblins or something, you know. It's like, no, that wouldn't work. But yeah, I think with just editing, you know, if they just edited out like 15 to 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes to half an hour, let's say, actually, they could have kept the pacing up and the story beats high, or like at that higher pace would have kept them like, and I think they could have still done that and like had the shift in tone, because before that it's like lighthearted, kind of comedic, and then it kind of shifts this tone to kind of dark and brooding a little bit, or like kind of just sad, I would say. Gets a little sadder. Still kind of uplifting because Tammy Faye herself was very uplifting. I just see it could have been implemented a lot better. But yeah, let's just finalize my rating and say 7.5, I guess. So, you know, like and subscribe if you want, and